Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a discussion video for you. Today I want to talk about hard use folders, but I've got these fixed blades out to get us going because of the fact that anytime you're questioning the strength of your lock and worrying about the need for a really strong lock, you ought to be considering a fixed blade. Okay, these are all going to be preferable over any folding knife if the need for a really strong lock is at all present. Okay, so wanted to get that out there initially. You know, these are all knives that I would do light batoning with, and that's something I would never do with any folding knife. These are knives that I would, think about putting really good pressure, kind of doing this kind of move with. And again, that's not something I would do with a folding knife. So the point I need to make right off the bat is, when you're looking at truly hard use, and if you want an EDC knife that can really be kind of ready for anything, then I would be looking at, any one of these. This is a Jesse Jarros Globetrotter. This is the Kaiser Harpoon. This is the Kaiser T2. All of these and many more, right? So whether you're looking at, there's tons of great fixed blades out there. I've had lots of them on the channel. But the fact is that for many, what would you say, hard use applications, if you know what you're getting into, a fixed blade is going to be where you want to go. Okay, now, aside from that, let's go into the rest of our conversation, having sort of made that qualification that, look, we all know that, for true heavy duty, hard use type of stuff, a fixed blade is going to be the preferable option. However, we are also well aware of the fact that within the folding knife community, there has been a trend, a desire to see hard use, heavy duty, overbuilt stuff for a long time. It's been around since certainly I got into the hobby, and it was already around. In fact, when I think about knives that have been out there, a lot of the initial folding knives that popularized this idea were knives that were designed for military use, were designed for hunting use, like they were specifically meant to be used fairly heavily. And so things like the Buck 110 or the Elmar Sear that kind of started off, and they were early popular folding knives, but they were also very heavily built. And so it's kind of been something that's been a theme as long as there have been locking folders in general, right? The idea behind a lock has always been, well, this improves the utility of the knife. You can now do more with your knife than you could before. All right, now, when I first started getting into knives, that had translated, this guy had come along not too long before, I guess a little bit before I started paying close attention. I don't know when Rick made the original XM18, but I started kind of getting interested in knives around 2010, 2011. And the Hinderer was quite hot back then, and those were the days, then and shortly after, where they were hard to even get. Like he has a better manufacturing capacity these days. But back then, like they would be sold out everywhere, and they're going for these crazy prices on the secondary market. We've told this story lots of times, so let's carry on. Point is, because of the popularity of the Hinderer and a few others, it became a real thing to just make these massive, heavy-duty folders that were, really thick blade stock and thick slabs of titanium. This is a pretty good example. This XM18, you've got thick blade, heavy-duty handles. All the components look fairly large and well put together. And so, this kind of had this had a pretty big influence on sort of the modern tactical folder and really moved things in a different direction. And so because of this, we've got knives from Zero Tolerance. Now, the original Zero Tolerances, like the 0300, the 0200, that initial Ken Onion mixed Strider lineup, were very heavy-duty, hard-use knives. Again, thick, heavy hunks of titanium, fairly thick blade stock, large, hand-filling handles, all that kind of stuff. And that trend has not gone away. Okay, so I'm going to move these guys out of the way because they're slightly older designs and come from perhaps a time when that was more of a thought. But if you look at these knives here, I think these are, by the way, I guess I should be saying the names. Everyone, you guys, you guys get on me for that, and you should. I really try to name them. Sometimes I forget. So this is the 0562 Ti. This is actually, I think I already mentioned that this was an XM18. We've got a We Knives Malice here. We've got the Riot Torrent, and we've got the Zero Tolerance 0308. So these are our newer knives. This guy's been around for 4 or 5 years already, the Torrent, but certainly its build, its design is really leaning toward that hard use, heavy duty. You know, we've got these giant stop pins here, fairly thick blade stock, fairly thick scale materials. You know, everything is pretty significantly done here. So this is definitely a knife that's designed with that idea of hard use, tactical stuff in mind. Same with this, you know, thick blade stock, big hunks of titanium, full back spacer, right? And so certainly these carry the theme of being hard use, heavy duty, overbuilt. However, just because they have that theme, it doesn't mean, and I'm actually going to bring this one back in, it doesn't mean that they actually are hard use knives. That it doesn't mean that these are the knives that I would take. And I've got some other knives on the table that I'm going to show you in a second. But if someone said to me, you know, Kevin, you're going to do, we're going to drop you off in the bush tonight. You're going to have to survive, you know, set up a shelter and get through the night type of thing. Or we're going to put you in a combat scenario, or, you know, any time where I'm going to be really, really relying heavily on my knife. I would not pick any of these knives. All right. And so while they sort of had the hard use theme, and I enjoy that theme quite a bit, I really question whether we can call these hard use knives. All right, one of the things about that, one of the reasons for that is all of these have bearings. Okay, all of these have fairly slim relief cuts here. That means if you're applying a lot of pressure on this lock, there's a chance for failure right here. And one of the things that was demonstrated in the when Cold Steel did the 0300 video, this is right where it failed. Now, I would have thought that would put knife makers sort of on notice. And at some point, if I ever design a folding knife, if it's got a frame lock at all, I'm going to be looking at how to do that relief cut in a way that maintains as much strength as is possible while still being able to unlock the knife, okay? I will say, I think, now this is a Ferrum Forge design that doesn't use the typical Ferrum Forge way of doing this. This knife kind of does, okay? See how it's thinner back here, but it's thicker at the front. So you've got sort of like an I-beam structure, which is going to add strength to that. That's how I like to see a relief cut done. Now this on the 0308, the relief cut is massive and super thin. Like this is a paper thin piece of titanium here, which means, you know, you start putting a lot of force in this direction and it's not going to hold up well over time. All right, so while I really like these knives and while I enjoy many, many things about them, I would like to suggest that they are not hard use, heavy duty, even really outdoor use knives. We could probably add on the 308 the hole in the side, which introduces at least the possibility for dirt and grime to get into the pivot, although that possibility exists on all of these. So let me now switch these out for some folders. Now we're going to stick to folders here because that's, you know, that's kind of what we're looking for. Are there some folders that I would consider hard use? Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to speak to a couple of points here in a second that, hold on, might be interesting to some of you. I'm trying to get everything in the picture. I don't have room for everything. But one of the things I want to talk about just briefly, so here is the Spidey Chef, and this is not what I would consider a hard use knife. However, it is something I would consider overbuilt. And the reason for that is because I feel like overbuilt is something that's designed to go above and beyond regular expectations. Okay, so perhaps, and so I'm going to suggest that that takes one characteristic of the knife and just amplifies it. So the Triad lock is a good example of this. Triad lock is crazily overbuilt. It takes the idea of a locking mechanism and just makes it as strong as it can possibly be. And Andrew Demko has done a great job of doing that. In the case of the Spider Chef, some of you are probably already going there. This takes the idea of corrosion resistance and takes it to the nth degree. Just goes, how corrosion resistant can we make a knife and a blade steel, and let's just max it out. Okay. Another example is the Inkosi. And one of the things I love about the Inkosi is the idea of longevity. This knife is designed to last a long time. And so things like the way that they do this giant stop pin. Okay, now that giant stop pin, when we think about it, it's not so much that I'm thinking about how much force you're putting down this way. Okay, you don't need a huge stop pin. I dare someone to take, a short little piece of wire like that and try to bend it or deform it. You're going to be really hard pressed to do it. However, over time, what happens is the impact of this hitting that stop pin can deform the stop pin. So Benchmade, for example, used a stop pin that spun to different flat surfaces. Probably not the best solution, but it was going along those lines. Okay. The other thing is a hard use knife to me. So those characteristics are overbuilt characteristics. Okay, not necessarily hard use. Now I want to bring in a couple of other knives. The Rat Model 1. Fairly thick liner there, very proven to be reliable, and just a simple, effective knife. Again, the idea here, though, this is hard use in a different sense. Okay, well, somewhat different sense. Okay, first of all, it's really a knife that's meant to be used and worked. But here's the thing, it's cheap enough that if you did happen to break it, if it did fail totally, then you would be able to replace it pretty readily. Again, similar idea here with the Bird Raven 2, very thick, overbuilt lock leaf spring there. But look at even the blade stock is fairly heavy duty, that high flat grind. Again, this is a knife that's going to take a real beating. And, this knife has been around for quite a while and has performed really well for me. All right, so let me get these guys out of the way and we'll come back and form a conclusion on the knives that we initially started with that, I sort of questioned whether or not they truly qualified as hard use knives. Sorry, my notes were covering up a different one. So these were just some of the examples, and there were more that we could talk about, and there's certainly more in my collection because I do like these larger, more heavily built knives. But I would suggest that we think of these more as high-end titanium frame locks, high-end folding knives, where they've captured some aspects of being overbuilt, and certainly they take their design aesthetic from the idea of, let's make this crazy overbuilt and heavy duty. And so they've got the parts, they've got the feel of being heavy duty, but they don't go into a careful detail to really make them as tough and durable and versatile as they could possibly be. So, I think of these more as high-end folders rather than really hard use folders. And it's not that I don't like them, and it's not that I'm saying anything negative about them. It's just that I consider them to be in a different category from something like this, which I consider a true hard use folder. There you go, guys. Let me know your comments down in the description box below. Follow the links. That does help the channel, whether it be one of the channel sponsors or even my Amazon store. All of that is a huge help. Again, I'll make special mention of Southern Edge Knife Works and White Mountain Knives. Use my discount codes. That does help the channel. It helps you because you save some money. And of course, it helps those businesses. They get some promotion through this video. So there you go. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.